Alright, welcome back everybody. In this video we are going to work on these item card components. And so if we return to, well, we'll go to Chrome. If you've been following along, you probably have something like this showing, which, if you recall, these are the names of each of our cards. So like I meaning I already have some of this stuff set up, which I did in the video on the main component. And so here they're just pieces of text is all that I'm rendering, but they are the names of each of the cards that are found in this file in utils, default clothing items, boot, cap, etc. Now, I just noticed this error. I don't recall if let's see. Yes, this one, we'll talk about that in a moment. It's a warning, but it's in red. We'll talk about that soon. All right, so what I would suggest is, okay, let's take a look inside our component. It's already all wired into place, right? You have access to the data right here. What's in this data object? Well, it's this stuff. Each data object will have an ID, a name, underscore ID, note the underscore, name, weather, link. Don't worry about the ID. Right? Well, in short, the ID you can use as the key. This is something that we covered in one of the lessons about lists. I believe it was in this sprint that we mentioned it. Each child that you're mapping needs to have a unique key prop. And so what that means is you need to go to where you're mapping these things and give it a key prop. And that's where you can use the ID, right? And remember, here's another thing to remember. I'm going to ask you to try and do as much of it as you can manage on your own before watching the rest of this video. Remember, this item object here, the thing that's called item here, is going to be the same as the thing that's called data here. It's going to have the same stuff in it. So yeah, go ahead and try to put together the markup and try to get the data injected in the correct places, and do your best to style it. And then you can unpause the video, and I'll walk through at least a good part of it. All right, so give it a try. All right, so we would need to start with HTML. And what do we have here? Well, we have a div, or some people might say you would use an article. I guess that would be all right, but I'll just use a div. We've got this element. Now, you might think that you need like a text container of some sort, like a div, and then inside it a paragraph tag. Not necessary, and you shouldn't do it that way. This can just be a text element, and you can create the background around it easily with CSS. And the div, well, it can have an img element that's going to store the image. And if you recall from, remember how we absolutely positioned the like buttons in the previous, or the delete buttons in the previous project? That would be a reasonable thing to do here. So let's give this a try. Div dot, what do we call it? I'm just going to call it, I guess it should be item card. I'm going to just go with card to be simpler. And so inside we need a call it a title, I guess, and we can make that an H. Do we have any H2s? Maybe this should even be an H2, but it feels like text. Doesn't feel like a heading. We don't really have any clear headings here. Um, so, um, so we'll make it an H2. So an H2 card double underscore title. And this is where we put that data.name in curly braces. And we said we need an image. You could probably do a background image also if you wanted. Instead, image.card double underscore image. Now the SRC, what's the SRC going to be? You might think, well, we need to import it, right? We need to import the images from somewhere. That's not the right file, but import them from assets, but they're not in assets, right? They're just links. And where are the links stored? They're in this item object. Each of these item objects should have a link property. And this data object is the same thing. So we should have a data.link property. And you have to put it into curly braces. And just to reiterate that, if you put it inside quotes here, it's just going to be plain old text. But if you put something inside curly braces, well, then it is JavaScript. And so here we'll do curly braces, and we could do something like just data.name, and then the alt text would literally be the same as the name on the card. You could you don't usually have to do something like image of blah blah blah, but so I'll just keep it like that. Data.name, data.name, data.link. That's all that we need in terms of data and markup, isn't it? That's easy. Now, if we go here and we put key equals, here it has to be item dot underscore ID. If you tried to put data dot underscore ID, it would not work. You would get data is not defined because, well, data is not defined. You might think, well, it's right here. Yeah, but no. If you tried to do data dot underscore ID, it's going to look for a variable called data somewhere in either the immediate scope or the surrounding scope or the global scope. And if it does not find that, an error will occur. So like here, we could go here so you can see we get data is not defined. So if we do, but if we do item.id underscore ID, and then we come back here and we refresh the page, that warning is not here anymore. So that's the setting the ID. What it needs to be is it needs to be something unique. So here I'll show you a little thing here, which is good to know, and you'll probably encounter this at some point in time. If you wind up with something non-unique, refresh the page. There we go. Now in this case, it's telling us encountered two children with the same key 3. It's not always that obvious because you don't always have the ability to just look at all your items. They might be coming from a database somewhere. And one thing that you could wind up with is if, I think it'll work if only a single one is null. No. Okay. I thought that having a single null ID would, interesting. So evidently having a single null key is accepted. Now, I believe if you have, I would expect that if you have 2 null keys, that is a problem. Yep, okay. But now, interestingly, only one undefined key is necessary to be a problem. One undefined key. So, and that would mean this is an undefined key. If you just remove the ID, we still get this error. So good things to pay attention to. All right, well, so the cards are all being rendered, right? We can do a little bit of CSS styling. So the main parameters we're looking at are we want them to be in a row. We want them to wrap like so. And we want the text to be visible inside the image. And so those are the three things that I'm going to focus on now to get the primary styles in place. We'll go to itemcard.css. If you have not tried this yet, give it a try. Try and style it now that you've got all the like the markup and stuff in place. And then if you're still struggling, restart the video, and I'll show you how to get it at least in the correct shape, rough shape. All right. Okay. So we need to import itemcard.css. Well, there's a bunch of things I can see. I can see we need a border radius. Border radius is not visible there, so you may recall you have to sometimes look around. No, that's for that text. Where is the border radius? Is it right here? Nope. Hmm. There. No, that doesn't look. That does not look correct. 1 pixel is not what it should be. Interesting. Well, I'm pretty sure, are all these images already rounded? No, they're not. Well, we can just estimate it. I don't know where that number is. So we need a border radius, and we'll need some sizes, right? 325 by 328. The 325 is the width, and I believe in this case that is actually uh, important because if you don't do it like that, it will be ever so slightly wider than it can be to fit, and you will only get 4 cards in a row at 1440 pixels. Border radius, I'm just going to do, looks like a pretty big radius. I'm going to go with 20. Um, do you recall what we need to do to be able to absolutely position this? Because there's something we need to do to this element, and that is position it relatively. Now the other elements we're going to need are card.name, note, card double underscore title, and card double underscore image. The image, as we said, we're going to absolutely position it. And I often like to just start with like top 0, left 0, and then figure out what to do with it from there. That helps me to anchor it in my mind the next time we look at it, which will be now. Okay, they're all bleeding into each other, so we need some gap, but also we don't want them in a column, right? What do we do to turn a column into a row? What's one of the things that we can do? That would be, of course, Flexbox. I've already mentioned that we want these to wrap, and that's easy. We just do flex wrap wrap. That'll make them wrap to a new row if there's not enough space. And they need a gap. Refresh. So, are these styles being applied? Styles. Oh, of course. So, I just tried to make I just made the flex, the child elements a flex container. That's not going to do anything for us. We need to make the parent container a flex container. And where is the parent container? would be here. You know what I am finding? We have a problem with our HTML. I'm just mapping a bunch of divs into this container. That's no good. What was I thinking? So here, um, it's just a whole bunch of divs I'm mapping right into this into the main container. No good. We need some better some better styling. I mean better markup here. So what we need is a UL and LIs. The UL should be a block, an element of the main block, right? And could call it card list. Card list with a dash. If you have any underscores aside from the double underscores, that's going to make it into some kind of a modifier, which is not what we want here. We're not trying to modify an existing element. This is a new element of the main block. And here, we have a UL, and I wrapped it around this list. So that means we now have a UL containing a bunch of divs. Is there a problem with that? Yes, there is. We don't want it to be divs. They need to be LIs. So sorry for the missteps. Maybe some of you even caught me there. But so here is what it should be, LIs. So UL, LI, this element needs to be the this element needs to be a flex container, right? So let's just, I'll just do it right now. Where should the styles go? In main.css, because we're styling an element of the main block. So here, display flex, flex wrap, wrap, gap, I forget, 21. But is that going to be the same here? No, of course it's 1. Okay, so we have a bit of a discrepancy here. 20. Never mind. There's no discrepancy. It's 20 pixels everywhere. I think what that is if you double click once more, now it says 21. Yeah, it's because of the 1 pixel border. So we want to use the 20 number here as the gap. No styles being applied to main.cardList indicates that I have probably neglected to import this file into main.jsx. Ah, good. Okay. Starting to do something. Although, what's up with the gap? The images are too big, right? The images are 500 pixels by 500 pixels. And you would think that we gave their parent container explicit instructions about how big it should be. But the images are not obeying. So we should do width 100%. And while we're at it, object fit cover cover should be good. Then back to here. All right, now that's starting to shape up. Now, why are there only 3 cards? I had mentioned that if we use the wrong measurements, there would be 3 card, there wouldn't be enough space. But why isn't there enough space now? Because if there was enough space in this container, um, we would have 4 cards in a row. And you can see the issue right here. It's the green stuff on the left. That's the padding that is added by default to by browsers to our list, to all lists, and that should just be removed. And these are very typical resets: padding 0, margin 0, and list style type none. Now you may wind up adding a margin again depending on how you want to produce this space, but that's up to you. I'm not gonna do that because here, you know, we're pretty close, right? You just need to resolve some details, font styles, background on this little text element. The one tricky bit is possibly getting it to center, and let's take a look at how we can get it to center like that. So for that, there are various so there are different ways that you could do it. If we knew the size of this card title element ahead of time, always knew how big it was going to be, then we could use a trick where we did like left 50% minus half of the width of this thing. But it's going to be different depending on the length of the text. So that would be difficult to manage, to say the least. So we want to do something else. And we should be able to, well, think about different ways you know to center things. Like, how can you center something in a container? Well, if that container is a flex box, it's pretty easy to center stuff, right? So, for example, well, this is already a flex box, but that was an accident. That I shouldn't have made it a flex box yet. But now we can make it a flex box and just use justify content center, and it won't work. Um, is that because we are absolutely positioned? I'm going to guess. Absolutely positioned. I thought that that was something I had done before, though. Go back here. That's why. Because I had the left 0. That the left 0 will take precedence if you're absolutely positioning something, which is what you would want. You would want that to take precedence because that's kind of what absolute position is for, is to insist that an element appear somewhere that it otherwise wouldn't want to appear. But in this case, we can just center it, and then we're only relying on the absolute positioning to make sure it's near the top of the container. That being said, the distance here is actually being caused by margin. And we don't want that. We don't want to do margin 0. So the correct distance should be applied up here using, I mean, we don't want the default margins. I said we don't want to do margin 0. That's incorrect. We don't want the default margins ever. So we should use the correct distance as a top value, which is top 15. So here, top 15 pixels, and remove the left. Oh, don't need that. Remove the left. And then for main.css, no, it's the card class. We want it to be a flex container, and justify content center. Um, I neglected to remove that margin, and that's why it appears even further down than it should be. So margin 0. There. Well, so there's really only a couple details that you need to get in place. I'll leave a couple to-dos for you. Um, I'm actually going to just put all of these to-dos in the app component because I'm not going to go through all the different um, files where you would need to do something. Basically, you need to improve the styling everywhere. To do, apply all styles from Figma, all styles from Figma to all components, set up the fonts. And of course, that requires setting the different specific fonts that are necessary here. If we go back to here and search for fonts, you can get the font files here. You know, I'll do another short video on these fonts actually. We'll do that next. So really you just have a bunch of styling to do here and also to implement the to do implement footer. Of course, there are also the stretch goals. Both modals. There's one more thing. Oh, yep, it's already appearing correctly aligned to the left, which is how the design tells us it ought to be. Like that. So, okay. Um, pretty good. Join me next time. We'll get the font set up.